in February of 2020.
Mm-hmm.
That was before, supposedly, before they were on the news hardcore about coronavirus. I think we had our first documented case in Kershaw County
Mm-hmm.
was a few months later. But I was sick as can be. It's probably one of the most sick I've been in my life.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I couldn't breathe. I was trying to cough. I couldn't cough anything up.
Mm-hmm.
I had a high temperature. Then it would go away. Then it would come back. So based off all of my symptoms, I'm basically convinced that I had COVID-19.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
But they just
ever
weren't testing people. Then you
right,
figured
they
it
weren't
wasn't in
testing
the
people.
news. Mm-hmm.
No, but I did what we all do in the fire service. I went to work. I talked to my captain. I said, "Hey, I don't feel well. I don't have a fever yet, but I'm going to monitor my temperature throughout the day. If it looks like I have a fever, I'm going to go home." He said, "Okay, cool." And so later that day, I was feeling pretty crappy. I took my temperature. I said, "Hey, I have a fever. I'm leaving, and I'm not going to come in. We don't come back till this is our policy in the fire departments. If somebody comes in sick, we're like, dude, what's wrong with you?"
Mm-hmm.
And because we work in close proximity to each other. We're working with elderly people,
Mm-hmm.
all that sort of stuff. If somebody gets sick here and passes it on, the whole crew will be out. Can't have
Exactly.
that.
Can't have that
So
because then nobody puts out the fire. Nobody comes and takes care
right,
of the sick people in the ambulance.
right, and if everybody would do that in society, that's reasonable, right?
Mm-hmm.
You say, "Oh, I have a fever. I don't want to go to work. I can't go to work because I'm gonna spread it." Um, that's totally fine. But I think the natural immunity that you can get from getting sick with a virus,
Mm-hmm.
that natural immunity is going to be the best thing you can have. Me personally,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm in my early 40s. I think at the time I was 40 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Relatively healthy, live a healthy, active lifestyle. Um, but it still knocked me down on my butt for a week.
Yeah.
And but ever since then, nothing. I haven't been sick since at
Mm-hmm.
all.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so some people can't take the risk of getting that initial sickness to get natural immunity.
Right.
I
Natural immunity
understand that.
means you got to get it.
Right. Um, like the chicken pox when we
Mm-hmm.
were kids. Your mom would send you out to play with the kid that had chicken pox, so
Right.
everybody would get it and be done with it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But now we have a chicken pox vaccine.
Right.
Um, so I'm not going to tell anybody who's not related to me, like my sons. I'm not going to. If you want to get vaccinated, go get vaccinated. It's a personal decision. Um,
And I agree with that. I do.
the big problem that we're having is people are saying you need to pay extra insurance if you're not vaccinated now, because people who smoke pay extra. So now you have to pay extra. Or if you're not vaccinated, you can't go into this restaurant, you can't go to the gym, you can't go to the park. It's going to be a tricky thing.
Well, it depends on who is saying this. If it's the government saying this, I'm
Right.
against that. If it's the insurance company saying this, I think it's fine. In fact,
Private.
I know of a company. It's a customer of mine. They manufacture adult incontinence products,
Hmm.
and they're self insured, and they have an unbelievable insurance policy where the company just takes care of you, and they basically pay all your premiums and all that kind of stuff.
Wow.
However, if you work for that company, you can't smoke.
Yep.
And so I asked the guy, I said, "Oh, you mean you can't smoke on the premises?" He says, "No, you can't smoke at all."
Right.
So what if you already smoked when they implemented this? Well, you got 18 months to quit, and
Yep.
they'll send you to a doctor. They'll put you in programs. They'll pay for all that. But after 18 months,
Hmm.
if you're still smoking, you need to leave. If you're overweight, you pay more.
Hmm.
Uh, if you belong to a gym, it can show that you go to that gym. You pay less.
Hmm.
I'm good with all that if
Yeah.
it's privately
Private
implemented.
company.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So where the problem is with first responders now, New York and Chicago, they're basically saying you have 30 days to get vaccinated or you're going to lose your job.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't know how I feel about that, because they are an employer, but when you're going to have probably half of the people refuse the vaccine, you're going to lose half your police force or half your fire department. Um, that's going to start some major problems. Um, we're talking here amongst ourselves about private firefighting companies. instead of using municipal. Kind of doing little business planning.
Mm-hmm.
If we were to lose our jobs for refusing the vaccine, what are we going to do? That sort of stuff. So it's strange times to, to be living in.
It is. It is. And I think when the smoke clears, we're going to be fine. But we've lived in strange times. We've always lived
Oh
in
yeah.
strange times. I mean, just when you read history books, when you look at how history was boggled in the past, when the decisions made by some people.
Yeah. Oh, look at the Dust Bowl. We're not in a Dust Bowl situation.
Right. That's exactly right. And
Yeah.
my friends in California say, "Oh my gosh, we don't have any water here." Well,
Mm.
then move to the Midwest. We have plenty of water here.
Right. Or
Okay.
go to the grocery store and buy some.
Exactly. Well, we need to do this and we need to do that. Well, the main problem with not enough water in Southern California is because Southern California
was
desert. It was never meant to sustain 18 million people. Never.
Right.
Never.
Right.
So
I think that's probably my number one piece of advice to everybody I talk to is get the hell out of the cities.
yeah.
Just get out.
Well, and that's because of the lifestyle that you like to lead. See, I am your, again, I tend to be moderate with everything. I mean, to the point where I don't live in the city, I don't live in the country, I live in the suburbs, right in the middle.
Yeah.
And I don't own a business where I take a lot of risk, but I have a job that pays very well. I don't live in a Taj Mahal, but we have a nice house with a pool in the back.
I'm pretty much the exact opposite.
Yeah,
I take
exactly.
a lot of risk for my job, and I don't make a lot of money doing it.
Right. But the thing is I want to do this, and if I'm going to do this, I have to do that to support it.
Yes.
And I respect anybody who wants to live any type of lifestyle. There's big advantages to living in the city. I mean, the city of St. Louis, for instance, I mean, there are restaurants. There are more good restaurants in 10 blocks on South Grand in St. Louis than there are in all of St. Charles County. I'm not going to lie to you. In 10 blocks on one street, there's more good restaurants than there are in our whole county. But you might get shot walking to one of them. Okay.
Right.
So okay.
There's a risk reward calculation you need to do.
Yeah. It depends on what you want to do. Okay.
Yeah.
It's your choice.
Well,
obviously,
we talk about like food scarcity or, survival situations or natural disasters or whatever. I don't want to be trapped in a city.
No, I get it.
But so I choose to live in a very rural area.
Mm-hmm.
But with that, it's going to take 30 to 40 minutes for an ambulance to get to my house.
Yeah.
If something happens.
But that's the way it is.
That's acceptable to me.
Right. Exactly. And that's the good thing about this country is you can live in a high-rise apartment in the city. You can live in the sticks or something in between. You can live where you want to live. You can do what you want to do. And and the Republic is in good shape. Could it be better? Yeah, it needs to be better. It needs to be much better. We need to strive towards that. But this is still just the best place in the whole wide world. And we're living, as you said, in the best times that we've ever had. Because all this stuff we're talking about, I do 99% of what I want to do. I just do.
I think it was Dan Carlin who said there was a time in human history where if you saw a boat approaching your land on the horizon, that was terrifying.
Mm-hmm. Right.
That could be the end of your world.
Right.
And imagine that now there's boats everywhere. We don't even think about danger coming from a boat or an airplane or anything like that. Even after 9/11, we don't think about it.
Nope.
So yes, but the problem is you can see little threads of fascism or statism or communism, like these little threads are starting to get woven into our daily lives. And
I don't disagree with that at all.
Yeah, that's kind of what we're dealing with in Kershaw County, unbelievably. And we're going to do more shows on that in the future about the globalist agenda it gets distilled down to the county level through these Council of Governments or the Council on Foreign Relations and that sort of stuff. The UN, we have believe it or not, in Kershaw County, South Carolina, we have 64,000 residents.
Okay.
We have our county council came up was really our chairman. This idea, he calls it Vision 2030. And immediately I'm like, you are not a very original thinker, are you? Like, you're just going to take the UN's Agenda 2030 and call it Vision 2030. And if you read it, it basically parallels the UN's Agenda 2030 for urbanizing rural areas for poor people, basically,
Mm-hmm.
to take land from landowners. So they're like, I have 38 acres. So they're going to say, you're not using all 38 acres. You don't need this. So we're going to build some houses here and let people live on it.
Yeah.
Um, and that's kind of what we're fighting against. That's coming to Kershaw County.
Is he a Republican or a Democrat?
He says he's a Republican. He's
There you
actually a retired 3-star general.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So he's in that club
Uh-huh.
that we're
Well,
not in.
there's advantages to that kind of thing. Um, uh, there was the EU versus independent countries. Okay, there were certainly advantages to that.
Well, if it's going to allow more freedom, free trade,
That's exactly right.
easier trade, great.
Yeah,
But when you're trying to keep track of how many chickens I have
yeah,
and my
yeah.
garden
That's
and how many acres I'm actually using, so you can take it away and give it to other people, like those are fighting words.
that's exactly right. That's exactly right. And you talk about all this on the Vote Matt podcast. Tell
Yes.
my listeners again about the Vote Matt podcast, what it's all about, where they can get it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, the Vote Map podcast started out as a joke, and it started out as just the Vote Map memes on Facebook, basically, kind of clowning around with some of the elitists that live near me. Then it kind of turned into a movement, and I met my friend Mike, and we said we should do a podcast. There's nobody's giving out the real news here in this county. So we talk about a lot of local issues, a lot of local to Kershaw County or South Carolina. Um, we you in the past, well, I think when you were on, what did we talk about? Illuminati or something,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah,
The
the
first time
Illuminati.
you were on,
Exactly. Yes.
and so we would dig into some of that stuff, just for fun. Now we've taken those shows and we've separated them out. We call them Kershaw County After Dark, where we just get into a bottle of whiskey and just talk about conspiracy theories and
Mm-hmm.
aliens and
Mm-hmm.
Bigfoot and that sort of stuff and have fun.
Fun stuff.
Yeah, and then we have the homesteading side, which kind of got folded back into the Vote Matt podcast. And then my friend David, he wanted us to do a show, so we said we got all these ideas, so we started what's called the Swamp Fox Podcast Network, and where different people can come to my studio and record a show, and we will put it out under the Swamp Fox Podcast Network. It doesn't matter what it is, whether you could be 100%, 180 degrees different from me, and we'll put your show out.
Mm-hmm.
I got a good buddy, David. He's lived in an extremely interesting life, and he's going to start talking about his life and that's how he was living now. That's called David Martin's Awakening. Um, so if you want to find the show, you can go on Google, iTunes, Spotify, Podcast Addict, anywhere podcasts are, and just search for the Swamp Fox Podcast Network. And all of our shows will be listed under there.
And that's again, that's the good thing about your show, and that's the good thing about podcasting in general is that there's there's one rule on the James Strong Show: you cannot libel people because that's against the law.
Yeah.
Other than that, it's whatever you want to say. Okay.
Yeah.
With the understanding that I'm going to call you on it if you talk smack. But your show's the same way. It's the same way, and
yeah.
And when I was on the Vote Matt podcast, whiskey was served, so it was very nice.
And we do take, if somebody wants to donate a little money to our whiskey fund, you can go to, oh shoot, I should be better at this. Anyway, we take cryptocurrency on Odyssey. Look for the Vote Matt podcast on Odyssey, and you can donate some cryptocurrency there. You can go to Anchor.fm. That's it. Anchor.fm that's where we put it. Goes through Anchor.fm through to all these other outlets. You can go there. You can leave comments there, and you can donate some money if you want to help us with our whiskey fund.
Very good.
That would be
Very
nice.
cool. I'm looking forward to coming back onto the Vote Matt podcast. If not in person, via the long lines. And again, we